This is the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 183, recorded November 21st, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are coming down off of the fun, extra long podcast we did about Daredevil last week. We're recording this one a bit earlier, recording it on Wednesday. We've kind of been shifting to recording on Saturdays, but because of Thanksgiving week and because of my personal work schedule, we're kind of adjusting it just for this week to kind of get it done, because otherwise we'd have to probably miss this week. And we didn't want to miss this week because we had something lined up already, which is the mid-season kind of finale of The Good Place. I say kind of because instead of coming back in January, it looks like it's coming back in mid-December for an episode or something. So it's a little different from last year, but yeah, we wanted to talk about this episode that's going to last for a couple weeks at least of The Good Place. But before that, we have a few news stories to go over. We didn't go over any news in last week's podcast, so some of it's from actually last week, so it's not new, even though it's news. But we still wanted to kind of discuss it. We only have a few, so we're going to go over them pretty quickly. First up, there had been a lawsuit filed by the Satanic Temple against both Warner Brothers, and against, Netflix about the statue that's in, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's a part of the Satanic school in Sabrina, and they had this statue it was a copyright infringement law against this statue they built that the Satanic Temple had built. And because they were upset about the whole kind of satanic panic aspect of Sabrina, which I don't know if it's necessarily something that should have been concerned over. Like I said, the show's kind of anti-moral, and I kind of like that aspect about it. So I don't know, it's not trying to be a satanic panic kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily portray Satan worshippers in a good light or something, but at the same time, it's kind of not, it's not taking it serious. It's not trying to undermine them, as a religion or something. It's just trying to be kind of weird and anti-moral, which I like. But anyways, there was a lawsuit, and now that lawsuit has been settled with Warner. We're not sure about the Netflix side of the lawsuit, if that was settled as well, if it's ongoing. We also don't really know the details of it. This is what happens when a court case is settled instead of won, is that you don't get all the details. Stuff is kind of confidential. So basically all they really expressed is that it is settled, the lawsuit between Warner and the Satanic Temple. So that's our first story. That's kind of interesting to bring up just because we are going to talk about Sabrina in a future podcast. We had kind of said maybe not, but we went through our scheduling, Will and I did, and kind of were looking at what we have coming up and what we're going to fill out our weeks with as far as our podcast. And we said, yeah, we can do Sabrina. We'll do Sabrina. So we thought that would be a little interesting thing to bring up before we do our Sabrina podcast, which will probably be in about a month, I'm guessing. Because next week, I think we're doing our winter preview, and the week after that, I think we're doing Castlevania, and then I think we're doing Sabrina after that. So we'll figure it all out. Our next story up is about the Game of Thrones prequel, which I had said last time we talked about. I said that it has been officially called The Long Night. Apparently, that's not so official. That's just what George R. R. Martin's been calling it publicly, but apparently HBO talked to him and said stop calling it The Long Night. So apparently there was a miscommunication there because George was being a little rebellious. But anyways, the new detail about the prequel series is that there's not going to be any Targaryens in the series, nor dragons. The series is going to take place 5,000 years before the events of Game of Thrones, and that happens to also be before the discovery of dragons by the Valyrian people in Essos. So this is going to predate kind of dragon stuff. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be any dragons or Targaryens or Essos or anything like that in general in the series. It just means at least when it starts, it's not going to have that. It's not part of the initial plan. It could very well be season 2. Here comes this thing in the East. Here's the development of the Targaryen clan. We don't know. But at least for now, no dragons, no Targaryens. That doesn't mean we're not going to have magic, though, or that we're not going to have fantastical elements. You have to remember that when the first men came to Westeros, and this is kind of about that, or like a little bit after that point. You had the Children of the Forest, which we've seen in Game of Thrones, but in a much smaller numbers. So they're going to see much larger numbers.
Well, it's not like you need Targaryens anyway, right? The entirety of Game of Thrones only had 2 Targaryens in it, and only one of them ended up being important.
But it's the thing is, like, it's just they're not going to factor into the series at all. Like, even though there were only the 2 Targaryens, like, Targaryen history and the stories of the Targaryens, all of that ended up being a huge part of.
Yeah, I know, I'm being cheeky.
So this is, their dragons aren't even going to be mentioned, and Targaryens aren't going to be mentioned at all, in the series, at least initially.
But because nobody in the series is going to know what the fuck a Targaryen is anyway, so they're not going to mention it.
There's going to be so much other magical shit going on, though. I mean, you have to think, like, this is going to be roughly around the time they build the wall, I think, which means that before they built the wall, there were the giants north of the wall that, you know.
Well, don't, if I'm remembering my lore, don't they build the wall as a reaction to the White Walkers?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have, so before the wall builds, you have, not only do you have the White Walkers, which kind of initiates them building the wall, but you also have, like I said, giants, Children of the Forest. You have lots of wargs, which, you know, you see a few of them in Game of Thrones, but like many more so in like before those days and stuff. So you're going to have a lot of magic, just not necessarily.
Because because you got to remember, like, Game of Thrones takes place in an age where magic disappeared from the world for the most part.
Yeah, the kind of the Andals, when they invaded, which was way after this point in the story, kind of like stripped away the forest and cleared out magic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So magic kind of went away.
Yeah, like there are remnants that still exist, but it's not prevalent in the current Game of Thrones. So, but this is an era where magic is much more prevalent. It's like everywhere.
Well, if you remember in Game of Thrones, in the second season of Game of Thrones, there was the whole part where Daenerys visited the House of the Undying, and the mages there talked about the fact that their magic had withered to like nothing, but then when the dragons were born and the red comet showed up in the sky, their magic like returned, like became powerful again. Magic withered. It didn't disappear, but it withered. And then when the dragons were born, it like brought magic back like in full swing into the world. And so this is going to be like before it ever withered.
Right.
This is like peak magic, probably.
Yeah. Peak magic.
So we'll see what that means for the series, when it eventually comes. But, that's just a little detail, you know, about it, which means, Naomi Watts will not be playing a Targaryen.
No. Like,
now my money's on Lannister.
I'm predicting she's a Lannister, especially given the character description of her being like a socialite with like a dark secret. That sounds Lannister.
You know what they said that this was going to look at the Age of Heroes, and that the history is not what we were told, or something kind of thing. That's how they described the series as a whole. Like you're gonna look back and you're gonna see things like Bran the Builder and stuff, but it's not what you've been told. Things have been changed by history and stuff. I wonder if they're gonna do something like maybe
here's
Lan, the house. I was gonna say the House Lannister was like
Lan the Clever.
Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna end up like doing a gender flip on that or something, because that would be kind of interesting, because you have kind of like patriarchal kind of society when it comes to
well, here's the thing, and here's what's really clever, is from my understanding, is the stories of the Age of Heroes. George R. Martin has told us those stories, but he's only told us those stories through the lens of the modern day characters'
understanding of it,
as the myths that the modern day characters understand it. Not so George R. R. Martin never like actually told those stories as they were. Right. So it's interesting now where you get to say, well, we'll get to see how it really happened, because as you know, with any myth that has been passed down through ages, there's a grain of truth, but things get twisted in the retelling, you know.
So that'll be interesting if they play on some of the things that we've taken for granted. You know, like that's what I said. Like it would be interesting if Naomi Watts' character is Lan the Clever.
Is Lan the Clever? Yeah,
maybe Lana the Clever.
Yeah, Lana Lang the Clever.
Yeah. It would be interesting if they did like
she
a
could very well be Lan the Clever. You're right. Yeah.
And that it's just kind of that got forgotten in history because, in Westeros things are more,
I mean, that also makes sense because they didn't name the character when they cast her, right? Which suggests to me like they're keeping a secret, so it must be like something fans would recognize, right? If they named her, it would be something recognizable to fans. Otherwise, why keep her character name a secret?
I imagine they're probably, and this is just coming from not from anything described by the series, but just like when you make a comment like it's not what you've been told kind of thing. I kind of come into the expectation that they're going to play on our perceptions of character loyalties and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting if they end up showing like that maybe like House Lannister and House Stark were like really close. Because Starks they're such an odds with each other.
The Starks were really evil.
But they could do that. They could very well do that.
You didn't let me finish. The Starks were really evil, but they still all die.
Yeah. They could really do something like that where like the Starks are actually like, they're like the Boltons or the Lannisters of this story. And then you have like, Lan the Clever being a gender swapped character that's female and she's like barely struggling to survive and is very honor bound and everything. And you could totally take this entire reverse spin on it. It's almost like, the way that, the Republican and Democratic parties like swapped at some point, like it was like the Republicans were like in the North and they were like the elitist kind of group. And then you had the Democrats in the South were kind of like the ones that were like in, support of slavery and all that kind of stuff like that. And then it's a certain point, like the parties just straight up swapped places.
The parties just straight up. Yeah, at some point, like all the Democrats became Republicans and Republicans became Democrats.
They could very well do something like that in the show, like where like the Starks are very Lannister-esque and the Lannisters are very Stark-esque, and that they kind of swap places at some point in the future, maybe through the course of the show, but maybe not, but they could do that kind of stuff. And when they make a comment like that, like it's not what you think or something, it makes me think that they're going to play directly on our expectations. Not necessarily just have things not be what we've already heard, but that they're going to very specifically play on them, They're going to say, this is what you expect, and you're wrong. It's the opposite. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. In other George R.R. Martin news, Hulu is now very close to ordering 2 separate Wild Card series that are going to have a shared universe. So we'd heard about this before, that there was going to be like a Wild Card series kind of in development, but we didn't hear anything about 2 series. And I don't think we had anything about a specific network or service attached to it. It was just kind of like in the development stages. And now Hulu looks like they're going to be getting 2 separate series that are going to tie together. Those who don't know Wild Cards, Will, can you explain that to the audience?
So Wild Cards is a series by George R.R. Martin about like there was an alien virus that infected like a bunch of people, and what it does is it does one of 3 things. It just outright kills you, or if you're lucky enough to survive it, or unlucky enough to survive it, it'll either turn you into a horrible mutant, or it will grant you superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a superhero origin series.
Yeah, so it's think Heroes.
Yeah.
But way more interesting.
Yeah, not shitty.
Yeah, exactly. It's an alternate history of post-World War II United States. And basically, yeah, it's all about the wild cards virus and how it rewrites the DNA of people. And so it's all about these people who are superheroes because of this virus,
Mm-hmm.
and also other people who are just turned into mutants by it. Those people are called Jokers. Yeah, the people who are turned into horrible crippled mutants are called Jokers, and then the people who acquire superhero powers are called Aces.
It's basically just another superhero deconstruction.
Yep.
Literary series. Instead of comic books, it's straight up books.
It was adapted. George R.R. Martin adapted from a long-running campaign of the role-playing game Super World that he was a game master of. So
So this is another thing to point out is that this isn't like a book series like Game of Thrones that's wholly written by George R. R. Martin. It's like a collection of short stories that's edited by George R. R. Martin. And
George R. R. Martin came up with the concept in the world. I think he wrote the first few stories.
Yeah.
And what he does is he just lets other authors write stories in that world as well.
And he edits them periodically for the books, yeah.
Yeah, and he edits them periodically for the books, too. So he's not as hands-on with this as he is with, like, Game of Thrones.
Yeah. This isn't specifically written by him. There's other people contributing and stuff. It's a shared universe, not just in that the two shows are going to be connected, but in that the authors share the universe together.
This is interesting. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, British writer Neil Gaiman met with George R. R. Martin in 1987, and he pitched Martin a wildcard story about a character who lives in a world of dreams. Martin declined the story due to Gaiman's lack of prior writing credits at the time, and then Gaiman went on to publish the story as The Sandman.
Yeah, I can tell right from your description, Sandman.
Yep. That's pretty funny coincidence, though.
It's funny, like, when you hear these kind of descriptions, I've read so many things like it. I read a book called, Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. He's like kind of up-and-coming, fantasy writer. And, he's the guy that ended up finishing off the Wheel of Time books after Robert Jordan passed away. And he also has a series called Steelheart that's about like this cataclysmic kind of event or something, this like thing that appears in the sky, this like light or something. And it just starts turning certain people into like powered people, like almost like gods, and they end up becoming either like villains or superheroes, except that the superheroes all end up not really being heroes. They end up just being like people that think of themselves as like gods.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want to like own their territories, and like the governments, they can't do anything about it. Like there's nothing they can do. So just kind of like the world falls apart into like territorial areas, like kingdoms or whatever, controlled by these different superpowered people. So this is like kind of these kind of concepts and stuff have been tackled a lot. It's like fertile ground. But Wildcards is one of the old superhero deconstructions. It goes way before a lot of those ones. I think it's after Watchmen, but it's way before stuff like Kick-Ass and
way before, because Wildcards is written in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's way before. Like, it's definitely of that era. I mean, it was definitely of that era of superhero deconstruction, because it was already happening in the 80s. Like you said, Watchmen happened. Frank Miller was doing The Dark Knight Returns, which was a deconstruction of superhero comics, Batman and stuff. So, that was already a big trend happening in the 80s,
I'm kind of excited because I know a lot of people get fed up with like this, there's too much superhero stuff, but I'm kind of excited that we're getting into the deconstruction stuff.
Yeah.
Like we already had a Watchmen movie, but we're getting like a Watchmen TV series now, and we're getting, Wild Cards now. We're, like as we get to like the deconstructive stuff, and we're also we have Deadpool, which is it's not deconstruction, but it's a meta series. It's a meta comic series. And the more we get into stuff like that, the more excited I am, because I'm big into that kind of stuff in general, not just about superheroes, but just I love deconstructions, things that kind of play on the idea of the popularity of an existing genre, and then kind of tip it on its head and explore it in a different way.
It's interesting that Hulu wants to do 2 series. Like, they want to do like a Wild Cards universe, I guess, which is easy because, again, the way Martin set it up is that the concept is open-ended enough to where you can pretty much do anything with it, Yeah. So that leads to a lot of exciting possibilities. So it's interesting that they off the bat they want to do 2 different series, which makes me interested to see what directions they'll go, how they'll differentiate.
I wonder if they'll do one more like a straightforward narrative, and they'll do the other one like an anthology series. That would be kind of interesting.
That would be kind of good. That would make sense.
Because that's basically what Wild Cards is. It's basically an anthology series.
It's an anthology series. An anthology series would definitely make the most sense. And then, they could have another series that follows a set, set characters.
Yeah. That'd be really interesting. So that's kind of cool to look forward to. This isn't set in stone yet. Hulu's very close, apparently, according to Deadline and some other sources.
If they lock it down, that'll further justify keeping my Hulu subscription for sure.
Definitely. There's going to be a lot of streaming services to choose between, and here's another one coming up as our last news story. Disney's streaming service has been officially named Disney Plus, and the most original move ever done.
Oh my God.
A streaming service with Plus attached to it. It's never been done before.
So now they have Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, and ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
You see a pattern here, and these are all...
Are they going to buy Google Plus?
Yeah. Those are all streaming services owned by Disney, so I'm guessing Disney just likes the Plus naming, so they just roll with that, because I guess that there's synergy in branding now, right?
Yeah. So besides us joking about the name, the series is launching late next year, so it's probably about a year from now, so it's probably going to be at the very end of the year. And they confirmed the Loki series, which we knew about 3 MCU connected series that were kind of being developed for the streaming service. So Loki series, the Scarlet Witch series, and one that's going to be with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Mm-hmm. And all of those had kind of talk about what was going on with them, like Loki, of course, Tom Hiddleston signed on. Scarlet Witch one had both Elizabeth Olsen, but also Paul Bettany signed on to be as Vision if they do that one. And then, of course, the 2 principal actors for playing Winter Soldier and Falcon for that series. The only one now that's confirmed is Loki. That doesn't mean the others aren't going to happen. It just means that's what we're getting so far, at least. I kind of think what they're going to end up doing is like single season one-off stories. So they're going to do like a Loki series, but it's not going to be like, there won't be a season 2 of the Loki series. It'll just be like a movie told over a longer course of time. Like a really long movie. The way Netflix has kind of like done the idea of like their shows being like a really long movie, you know, that's broken up into parts. I think that's what they're going to end up doing, but they're not going to do seasons. It'll be like, here's a Loki series that tells a set story. And then next season, instead of a Loki series, we're going to get, here's a Scarlet Witch series.
Yeah.
And then after that, then the next year we're going to get, here's a Winter Soldier and Falcon series or something. That's what I think they're going to end up doing with that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case. I mean, with streaming services, the kind of trend is to just push out as much as possible. So they could very well end up pushing like all 3 of these out in the course of 6 months, you know?
Right.
But the Loki series is the only one that's confirmed, but they did confirm 2 Star Wars series. Not only The Mandalorian, which is one we knew about, which by the way, I forgot to put this in the notes, but it's now been confirmed that the guy playing The Mandalorian is Pedro Pascal, Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones.
Nice.
So that's a great get. He's a Whedonverse actor. He was in an episode of Buffy.
Ah, nice.
You remember the episode of Buffy where she was like, it was like her and she was tangling with a vampire like in a graveyard, and they were just kind of chatting as they were fighting and stuff.
Oh,
and that was like the whole episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Pedro Pascal.
Oh, okay. Cool.
In that one. And then also, you know, more recently he was in the Narcos series, you know, which we just got Narcos Mexico. It's kind of like a second series of that, but he was in the regular Narcos series. So yeah, great to see Pedro Pascal getting more work. I think his role as Oberyn in Game of Thrones is one of my favorite characters in that whole series, as brief as he was in it. So yeah, it's really exciting to see him get something big like this. And that's a series that's being done by Jon Favreau, but they also announced that they're going to be doing a prequel series to Rogue One, starring the one character. I can't remember the actor's name for some reason. It's a famous Mexican actor. I just can't think of his name right now. But he was in Rogue One, and he's going to be in this prequel series as well that they're doing. So Disney, right off the bat, I mean, CBS kind of soft launched their all access service by going like, oh, we'll do Star Trek, I guess, and Good Fight, and we'll just kind of add things here and there. Disney's like right out the gate, like, here's straight fucking MCU and 2 Star Wars series.
Yeah, they're not pulling any punches.
They know who their audience is, and they're hitting hard, you know? They're going like, okay, So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what more they put out. Cause they're going to have this stuff. They're going to have their entire Disney collection. So this will be the place that you can watch like all the MCU movies and stuff, which is going to be nice because it always gets hard. Like I'm always like, oh, I'll catch my mom up on some of the MCU movies and we can go and see Avengers or something. And then trying to find like who has which movie, like which service, The newer ones are usually on Netflix. The older ones are usually like not on anything. Like try to find like the original Iron Man. Where's that streaming? If the Disney service can get all those, and just kind of have them all up there, the one thing might be they might not have the newer ones just because of contracts they have with Netflix, but those might be expired by then. I don't know. But, like that alone is going to be a huge selling point. And then you have the whole kind of idea of like the Disney vault where they take their movies and they're like, oh, we'll release it for a limited time and then we're hiding it again in our vault. If they just straight up put all those up on their streaming service and they're just always there, that's a huge thing too. So it'll just be interesting to see like what they do if they actually get to straight up original content that's not related to existing properties. Like are we going to see them make a Stranger Things in the sense of like this is like a talked about streaming show that isn't based on MCU, isn't based on Star Wars, isn't based on existing Disney property? Are we going to get something like that from this service?
Right.
So that's kind of, that'll be interesting. But even if they don't, I think this is one of the few where they wouldn't even have to do that. Cause if they just have MCU series regularly rolling out and they have Star Wars series rolling out and they have the full collection of all the MCU and Star Wars and all those other movies, that's big,
Right.
That's huge. Alex said last week that he was waiting for an X-Men series to hit Netflix, but maybe we'll get an X-Men series hitting, this, That would be interesting. But that's it for the news. So let's go into our main topic of conversation, which is The Good Place. We're talking about season 3, episode The Dot Over the I. The episode is titled Don't Let the Good Place Pass You By. Nice little guest star in this movie with, Michael McKean playing Doug. We had talked about being excited to see their portrayal of Canada because we wanted to see something kind of like what they did with Florida and Nevada, where they kind of made fun of both of those. They didn't really do that here with Canada. We didn't really see like a lot of making fun of that.
Michael McKean's like a Canadian actor, though.
Yeah, but I just mean we didn't get like a lot of like jokes about Canada, like at Canada's expense, like the way we got the Jacksonville jokes in Florida, But what we got, I think, was even better. And it's something that I don't think either of us or many people at all were expecting at all, which was like a callback to something that happened in the very first episode when they pointed to a picture on the wall that was lovingly placed in Michael's office of this like stoner. And he said like, yeah, well,
like, he's like the only person ever to like figure out how the good place actually works. How the afterlife actually works.
Is Doug, and he figured it out in the 70s when he was high on shrooms, and he guessed like 97% of the entire thing, like in one go or something.
I like, see, this is what I like about The Good Place, because I like what seemed like a throwaway joke in like the first episode is now like almost an entire episode.
Yes. and not only that, but it's like, it has more meaning to it. It's not just like a little funny thing that they're going to come back to. It's like they come back to it and you see basically like, okay, this guy's like a celebrity to Michael and Janet. He's seen as like this, like, oh, he's this guy that figured it out and he's got the most Good Place points. He's the one that's the template for people to get into the Good Place. But then you actually get to his life and it's,
and you see like how it's actually like ruined his life.
Yeah.
How like he lives like shit because like maximizing his points means like eating only like radishes and like just giving in to like anybody's demands, no matter like how ridiculous or petty, just because like it will make them happy, and making people happy like gets you points.
Yeah.
So when that kid comes around, that kid just like bosses him around and gets him to do whatever he wants for his like psychopathic enjoyment.
Yeah, the little sociopath kid that
lives
down the street and comes just to fuck with him.
Yeah, because he realized like this guy will do whatever I say.
It's like, give me your shoe, and he's like gives him a shoe, and then he just like throws it.
Yeah.
So we saw future Bad Place resident doing that. But yeah, it's, you just see how kind of miserable his life is. And it brings up some interesting ideas, which is that one is that, what does it mean to get into the good place? Like, he's so scared to get in. He's so worried that even having figured out so much of the system that, like, even though he's done so much already, that if he slacks, he might end up with just not enough points. There's also kind of a hint at the very end of the episode, without going into all the details of the end, that maybe that guy's not even going to the good place himself.
Well, Sean kind of says self-assuringly that everybody's gonna end up in the bad place eventually.
Yes.
You know.
And it's the idea like, okay, so even this Doug that's so perfect, that does all this stuff, even he's gonna end up in the bad place. It's like he's already like in the bad place, basically. He's like in the version of the bad place that Michael created. The kind of like, not like straight up torture and skewering, but like just making people's lives miserable. That's like Doug's daily life. So he's already in that state. And now, like, it's like not gonna matter, and he's gonna go to the bad place anyways. It also brings up the idea of what the whole reason why the Brainy Squad, or whatever they called, the Brainy Bunch, I think is what they called each other, our main characters here, where they don't think that they can get into the good place anymore because they have knowledge of it. Well, if Doug has knowledge of it, is that why he's maybe not gonna get into the good place? Because he knows? So, like, even though he's doing all of this, it's pointless because it didn't work against him. Is this something that maybe was engineered by the bad place because they gave him a peek inside just to torture this guy? Because that seems like something the bad place would do, you know, like the people like Sean would do, or Trevor would do. So it brings up a lot of interesting points about that.
Yeah, it does.
That's kind of the struggle that this is going on. Like, this is where it's currently exploring ethics, is the idea of if you know something, like, how does that affect what you do? And now they're going to start pushing into the ethics of the good place itself, I think. That's how this episode ends, basically, is with Michael and Janet now looking at the entire balance system, and something's really wrong. Seemingly like a manipulation of the bad place to basically screw over everybody that's being judged. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah, like the big realization Michael has is maybe the entire system is broken, right? That's what Doug makes Michael realize. You know, Michael has this big revelation because of Doug that, you know, maybe the system is broken. Maybe the system doesn't actually work, you know?
Yeah. Maybe like the ethics of the good place and the bad place, the ethics of the afterlife themselves are in question, not just like the people that must abide by them.
Although again, it seems like Sean already knew this.
Yeah.
And it might seem like a plot hole, but Michael being a demon and engineering the good place, it seems like something he should have known already.
Unless it's just, you know, because Sean's a pretty high up in the bad place.
Yeah, Sean's
he was Michael's boss.
Yeah, he was Michael's boss.
So it could be information that he doesn't have. And it could also be, as I mentioned, this could be a way of the bad place subverting the rules of the afterlife in the same way that they built their own portal to get to
That's true, yeah.
Michael, like, had to steal the key to get them into Earth, you know, in his final exit there.
He went through, like, what was supposed to be the only door. And then the demons just made their own door, you know?
Yes. Which strikes the idea that, like, the bad place isn't playing by the rules.
Right.
Which will be interesting to see how that plays out in the story. Because basically, like, let's go back a little bit in this episode. We had kind of two main storylines going on. One was Michael and Janet meeting Doug and his relationship with him, and the
other was Eleanor trying to find a way to confront Chidi about her feelings that were revealed in the last episode.
Yes. Which, it's funny when she goes to Tahani.
Yeah.
To get some advice, and Tahani's all, oh, about your hair? Like your bad hair?
Yeah. Your bad hair.
Eleanor's like, no, not about, wait, what about my hair? oh, never mind. But yeah, so she's struggling whether to tell Chidi at all, how to tell Chidi, how to talk to him about, what she discovered about the afterlife and how they had become a couple in one of Michael's loops. So she's struggling with that. And while she's trying to kind of figure all that out, she notices, now that she has afterlife she starts noticing that the bar that they're all in is like filled with demons now.
Yeah.
It's all these people from the bad place that she recognizes.
And she's, oh god, yeah, and she's like, she's trying to sneak out, right? And they catch her, they corner her, and they hold everybody hostage in the bar while Sean waits for Michael and Janet to come back.
It's funny the kind of the people that they brought in, some of these demons that they brought back, like characters that you just kind of forget about.
Oh,
like,
yeah. I'll bring that up. I'll bring that up. There's the time and place to bring that one up. Let's see. But but Michael comes back because like Sean says, oh, I want to see the look on Michael's stupid face when he sees us. And then Michael comes in and Sean's like, yeah.
Eleanor's like, Michael's never coming back. You're not going to get him at all. And then like the next second.
And the next second Michael walks right in and then like Sean says, yep, there's that look. I love that. I love seeing that look on people's faces. And so this leads to a big fight where like all the demons and Michael and everybody, like, they get into a big brawl. Janet, like, really kicks ass in this brawl. And then, like you were saying the demons they brought back, cause then you see, like, the one demon they set up as Eleanor's soulmate in one of the reboots.
Yeah.
The guy who's always, like, talking about going to the gym and he's ripping off his shirt. He just says, I've been hitting the gym, and he rips off his shirt.
He's like, I'm gonna kick your ass, cause I don't know if you know, but I work out a lot.
Yeah, I work out a lot. Rips off his shirt.
So him coming back was hilarious. We also had Vicky, who we had seen in the last episode. Who was, also the real Eleanor in the original loop. But and then also at the very end, you see, like, after they dispatch with most of the demons, Bad Janet shows up as well from the bad place. The evil version of Janet shows up, which is funny. But what this all comes down to is there's this great fight with Janet basically kicking everyone's ass, and Michael's, like, opening up gateways to the afterlife that basically Janet's, like, knocking people into. So he's, like, opening up a door, like Janet will send a character flying, and he opens up a door right behind the character, so they go launching into the afterlife, and they can't get back out, So all this is happening. Sean ends up knocking Janet into his bad place store, but she comes back and kicks his ass. And they get rid of everybody, but then a bunch more demons show up and they're surrounded, and they know that there's just too many of them and they can't do anything about it. And this is how the episode ends. Janet basically says, I have to take you into my pocket dimension, basically saying if she does that they're gonna die. Like, this is gonna kill you guys, but if I don't, your guys are gonna die anyways, but you're gonna be grabbed by the bad place. So this is the only way that I can, like, grab you guys, and, like, save you guys. So this puts an end to the Earth storyline. I'm like, thank God. I love the show even when it's on Earth, but I'm happy to leave Earth on the show for a while and have them go somewhere else. But they're going to go to the pocket dimension now, which makes me hope that we're going to see Janet's one-time boyfriend with the bells for genitals, the boyfriend she created to get over Jason. But that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, it ends on that cliffhanger, really. Like, so that I guess they're headed back towards the afterlife.
Oh, well, they're in, like, Janet's pocket dimension now, so.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're gonna stay there for a while, cause they can explore the idea. If Janet and Michael now are thinking about the system not working, I wonder if this is what they're gonna do now in her pocket dimension. If they're
I guess the idea is, like, if the system doesn't work, they're gonna try and
create a system that works.
Fix the afterlife, right?
Yes.
So that's the new goal. Instead of trying to save everybody, get everybody enough points, because they realize system's broken, they're gonna change the entire system.
And become the architects of the new afterlife.
And then architect it so Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason automatically qualified for the good place.
Yeah, which of course can bring up all sorts of ethical things, because if you're the architect of the good place, but you're also eligible to go to the good place because of how you establish it, that's going to bring up all sorts of ethical questions, which is where the show thrives, It thrives on challenging ethical questions.
Right.
So that looks like what we're going to be getting in the near future, at least on The Good Place. It's hard to kind of go, oh, this is what The Good Place is going to be now, because it changes like every couple episodes. It just completely throws out the rule book and reinvents itself.
And that's what I love about The Good Place, because, it keeps you on your toe. It never gets stale.
As we said, I think the last time we talked about it, it's the Madonna of TV shows.
And I think this should make people happy, because I think people, for most part, we're not digging the whole show being set on Earth all of a sudden. So now that we're back off of Earth, we can start doing more crazy shit again.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Do you think we're going to be in the pocket dimension for a while, in Janet's pocket dimension? Or do you think it's going to go back to the afterlife pretty quick?
I think it's going to go back to the afterlife pretty quick. I don't think. I expect like one episode in Janet's pocket before they leave and head back to the afterlife.
Do you think we're going to see Janet's boyfriend, though, the one she created to get over?
100% yes.
I love that actor, though. He's great in like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and other stuff he's done in. So it'll be funny to see him again. With his genitals made out of bells. And all the other little funny touches they gave his character. But that's it for The Good Place. Where we're looking forward to on this series, what we think's coming and when we think it's going to happen and how long things are going to go on for. This is kind of like where we're kind of guessing on stuff, and we're going to be excited for it to come back. But in the meantime, we have a few kind of episodes that aren't about regular TV discussions coming up in the pipeline. So next week we're going to be talking about the winter TV preview. So basically I'm gonna put up a winter TV preview sometime before the podcast next week, and then we're gonna do our podcast kind of about our top picks as we usually do. We'll pick like 10 shows to basically talk about that are coming up in winter that we're interested in. And so that's gonna be what we're discussing next week. The week after that, we're gonna be joined again, hopefully, if things schedule out well, by Alex and Mike, who joined us last week to talk about Daredevil Season 3. They'll join us again to talk about Castlevania Season 2. And then after that, the next week after that, we're going to talk about the chilling adventures of Sabrina. And that's going to take us right before Christmas, which I think The Good Place is coming back like that week.
By the way,
so
there
we'll
is
talk about that again, I guess.
There is an extra episode of Sabrina coming in December for Christmas, a Christmas special.
Yeah, depending on when that comes out, we might talk about it before Christmas, depending on when it hits.
It's going to hit before Christmas, but I think it's called Sabrina: A Midwinter's Tale.
Yeah. So we'll probably talk about that. We'll probably talk about that and The Good Place in an episode together.
Yeah.
Because that's going to come back around the same time. I don't know if it's going to come back for more than just one episode, but we'll talk about that kind of roughly around there. We're still kind of figuring out like when stuff's coming back and what we're going to be able to talk about when. So, but right now, like I said, next week we're doing Winter TV Preview. Week after that, if things go according to plan, we'll be talking about Castlevania Season 2. And then the week after that, we're going to be talking about Sabrina, not the holiday special yet. We'll be talking about the first season. So here's what's coming up in the week ahead. On Friday, November 30th, 2018, Black Friday, Baby hits Netflix. Then on Sunday, December 2nd, 2018, Night Flyers comes to Sci-Fi. This is another George R. R. Martin series. On Monday, December 3rd, Berlin Station comes to Epix, comes back for I think it's its second or third season. And then on Friday, December 7th, Dogs of Berlin returns to Netflix, and Neo Yokia has a Christmas special called Pink Christmas. That's like Netflix's animated series. I think it's from some musician, I think, created that show. I can't remember who. It's not the guy from My Chemical Romance. He's the guy that did the other one that's coming, right?
Gerard Way. Are you talking about Gerard Way?
He's from My Chemical Romance, right?
Yeah, he's the front man for My Chemical Romance, yeah.
He's doing the other series. He didn't do Neo Yokio, right? He's doing the one...
No, Jesus, no. Neo Yokio is fucking Will Smith's kid.
Is it?
Jaden Smith, yeah.
No, he's in it, but he didn't, there's some other musician that created that.
I have no idea, but it has nothing to do with Gerard Way or My Chemical Romance. It's not even his style.
That's it.
Yeah, he's doing the Umbrella Academy, which was
also coming to Netflix.
Which was a comic book he wrote way back.
Okay, so that's it. But, some people like
you had me like super confused with that. I was like, what?
I knew there were two shows created by musicians. I just didn't remember which was which. But Neo Yokio is it's like an anime, Americanized version of an anime. And so yeah, that's gonna have a Christmas special on December 7th. That's coming out before the Sabrina Christmas special, which we're also getting. But, yeah, so that's what's coming up in the week ahead. Till then, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Podcast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best